All right, and there is a statement tonight which is released by government. They're saying government has noted the ongoing operations by law enforcement agencies and the subsequent public interest they have generated. These operations fall within the normal scope of their mandate to investigate matters and also recover assets. The public is reminded that such activities are a standard and essential part of government's fight against corruption, ensuring accountability and also upholding the rule of law. And the law enforcement agencies also then government saying that they should be afforded the space to conduct their work without any disruption or interference, and government is also saying that it's confident that law enforcement agencies with all the material time have in fact will act then in full compliance of the law. A statement that is issued by William Baloyi, who's a deputy government spokesperson there, and of course reacting to what has been happening throughout the day. But let's move on to something else that is also developing. That's the Public Protector marking 30 years this year. And the Chapter 9 institution was established in 1995 to investigate, report on and also remedy the improper conduct in state affairs. And the conference, of course, as it's going to be held, will be marking this milestone in Cape Town next week. Now, the Public Protector, Adv Kholeka Gcaleka, joins us live now this evening. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. 30 years on, what is the one reflection that is top of mind as far as the fight to defend human rights in South Africa is concerned?
A very good evening, and a very good evening to the viewers. And I mean, what's on top of our agenda, firstly, for this conference is that we look into the journey that we've traversed as the Public Protector in the last 30 years, but most importantly, the transformative journey moving ahead 30 years from now. And what's at the top of our agenda really is to take stock of the work that we have done, the highlights of cases coming from the time of the first Public Protector, Judge SABC, all the cases around the oil gate, the impact we've made around the irregular procurements within Petro SA, the Nala Dam, the challenges that were faced regarding this particular matter by the communities, the buildings of the Ndoni Dam, how it affected the communities, evolving really over time of the Mail and Guardian case in the courts, which really gave us more powers and actually strengthened our investigative methodology as the Public Protector, and stemming to this period where we are putting more emphasis on investigating systemic corruption within the state affairs.
And when you speak about some of these matters, I want to circle back to the big ones in just a moment, but there is something that we often do, right, which is to think of the big matters. But at times, there's a small man, there's the ordinary citizen who is, given back their pension. Others are being, having sewage being fixed in their homes that, are cases also worth looking at.
Most definitely, the Gibbons hostel case is one that comes to mind, where we actually investigated how the environment of the hostel dwellers within the Gibbons community is, the responsibilities of the municipality, and whether they were acting in accordance or with what is expected through the Constitution. The Alexandra matter, where we also looked into service delivery within the Alexandra township.
And also, of course, thinking back to, the days of Nkandla, the days where even some of the remedial actions had to come under scrutiny to say that, are they binding? Are they not? Do they have to be acted upon? And I suppose, as you reflect on that journey, that also comes to mind, doesn't it?
Most definitely, because Nkandla has had a major impact on the mandate of the Public Protector, firstly confirming in line with the Constitution that the remedial actions that are taken by the Public Protector are actually binding, as opposed to just the recommendations which were being done in the yesteryears by the Public Protector. And by the way, this has had a major impact on us as an institution, because we found the institution being taken on review in many times, because most institutions didn't want the binding effect of this institutional power. But however, we do see the benefits now of the binding nature of the Public Protector remedial actions, because we found that the state institution are actually moving towards implementing these recommendations or remedial actions rather. For instance, we come from a time where the implementation of the remedial actions were around 0.5%. We are sitting at over 50% currently, which actually shows that there is a realization of the binding nature of the remedial actions, even though we are not yet satisfied, but we are hoping that there'll be much improvement as we move forward.
And speaking about, satisfaction, let's take a look at, something that you've said, of course, as you probe corruption in state affairs sometimes. Are you finding that over the years, things have gotten worse, or are they getting better?
It's difficult to tell whether they're getting worse or better, but what we definitely can say is that we are still seeing maladministration, suspected fraud and corruption, erosion of governance at a very high rate. If you think that our report into the state of capture would have revealed what it had revealed at the time, which really shocked the nation and which actually took the remedial action for the establishment of the State of Capture Commission, you would have thought that we wouldn't have had the sagas around the PPE. You would have thought that there wouldn't have been continuous maladministration thereafter, but we continue to see the perpetuation of that improper conduct within our state affairs.
And would you say, when you look back, especially because, as you say, when it comes to the State Capture Commission and how this came as part of the remedial action by the Office of the Public Protector, would you say you're happy or satisfied with how the recommendations are being carried out, if one could say?
Look, there is progress that government is making towards the implementation thereof, but of course one would wish that that would be much speedily and probably measured as well, because it shouldn't just be recommendation in terms of those actual actions, but there should be a systemic implementation of those recommendations to ensure that we strengthen our governance system and administrative systems to ensure that we do not see what we had seen during the state capture period.
And you, of course, now, as you inch closer to, 30 years, you're going to be marking it with, religious organizations. There's going to be ministers. There's going to be quite a lot of people in the room, including the president, who are going to be reflecting on this, your office's journey up until this very point. But I wonder for you, when you look at a story, for example, like a Tembisa hospital, and what the SIU has been able to uncover there, how is the Public Protector Office, processing these particular developments?
Obviously, the Public Protector was privy to this case. However, at the time, the SIU was investigating the matter, and we do not want to duplicate efforts, and therefore the SIU continued with the investigation. But the Public Protector also has an investigation that he had done regarding Tembisa, and it was the irregular appointment of the former CEO of Tembisa, where we highlighted the irregularities in the hospital. There are many irregularities regarding procurement in state affairs that we have highlighted, the Maimuye School, also within Gauteng, the Inokim Gijima matter, or in the Eastern Cape, where we see massive state funds actually being siphoned out of the fiscus. And this for us is a major concern. But basically, what our conference is also intending is to strengthen our collaborative measures. Hence, we call upon partners not just within our country, but also in the continent and globally, including, for instance, the Commonwealth, where we've got the Assistant Secretary General who'll be joining us, the Secretary General of the International Ombuds Institution, the representative of the United Nations in our country, because we have to find more mechanisms and support for anti-corruption in our country, and also broaden the scope of institutions such as the Public Protector and best practices to actually prevent corruption rather than be reactive to corruption. Because once the money has been stolen, yes, the SIU is doing a lot of work together with the NPA, the Hawks in respect of the recovery of this money, but we all know that it is not even a fraction that is being recovered, and this actually affects our economy systematically. The IMF report and the World Bank reports also speaks to the slow pace of our country in the implementation of reforms. So really, it really calls upon collaborative measures, but also looking into civil society, how civic society can actually assist and work together and collaborate with these institutions to ensure that we prevent corruption and we encourage whistleblowing, but also ensure that we put in place legislation and strong measures for the protection of whistleblowers. Because when you look at corruption within state institutions such as Tembisa and others, the information is actually known by those who are within the institution. And therefore, it's important that they too know that they are protected and feel protected and that the law is able to take its course.
And I'm glad you speak about the fact that the conference is going to be looking at preventative measures, because this is also where we often talk about to say that are the systems allowing for such, and how much of a change in the government systems do we need to have in order to ensure that, alarm bells go off even before the money is stolen?
Yes, most definitely. That's what's important. So what we seek to achieve at the conference is to ensure that state officials and the state at large actually understand the mandate that is vested on the institutions such as ours. Hence, we've invited state organs themselves. Parliament will be represented as well, so that as well we look at the oversight role and how are we able to collaborate that, because Parliament plays a crucial role in oversight, looking into the budget, how has that money have been utilized and so forth. For instance, we've got, like in the case of Maibuye in Tembisa, where the school was built over a number of years, and the Department of Education continued to receive a budget, and yet they could not properly account on what they had done on the money which they had reported as money spent. And if we had an effective oversight from the legislature would have picked up that there's actually something wrong here, but also the broader role that Parliament has the powers to pass the budget, including the legislatures. And therefore, that doesn't mean that they must just passively run with the processes, but they need to ensure that money is utilized where it ought to be utilized, but also looking into referral mechanisms between institutions such as ours and oversight institutions and the monitoring thereof. We are actually glad to report that a few months back, SCOPA within Gauteng also invited the public protector to report on some of the developments in the remedial action and ensuring that they hold the executive accountable in the implementation thereof.
Quick one before I let you go. Actioners say, for example, launching a complaint with your office last month, complaining that around 467 individuals and companies that were flagged by the SIU for blacklisting on the National Treasury's restricted suppliers register. Only one, they say, has been listed. Is there any development in that particular complaint?
Yes, the investigation in respect of that matter is ongoing. And I also want to highlight that these are the issues that the public protector is actually looking at. In some of the reports, including Maibuye, Inokim Gijima, we actually highlight the role of the National Treasury in the prevention of corruption. National Treasury's role is not just to issue regulations, to allocate the budget, but their role in terms of the PFMA and the MFMA is to monitor, is to assess, and it is to take action. And part of the action is in respect of this case that you are referring to, in respect of the blacklisting of service providers who are involved in maladministration.
All right, appreciate your time, Advocate Kholeka. Thank you so much for talking to us. That conference there in Cape Town next week, certainly it does look like there is a lot of ground that has been covered, but still more needs to be done. Thank you so much for talking to us. That was Public Protector Advocate Kholeka Gcaleka.